So in this week's video I'm talking about creative block, my experience of it, and 7 things you can do to get past it. Okay, so creative block is something I think that all of us as creatives go through probably many times during our lives, whether you be photographer, video maker, musician or a writer. I think it's a really inherent part of being a creative, but that sort of strength in numbers mentality doesn't make it any easier when you're going through it, especially when you're kind of depending on your photography and your video to facilitate your working life. Initially, I just want to talk about 7 things that are really good ways of getting over creative block. So the first thing I'd suggest trying is starting a project. So this YouTube channel is one of the projects I've begun to try and make myself more creative, especially with regard to video. And because of the type of videos I'm doing, photos will also come from that. Now, depending on what you do, that might not be a realistic thing to do. So there's lots of other things you consider. If you're a photographer and you're struggling, maybe you could try shooting a project just based around a certain colour. So this time of year, green's probably an easy thing to go for, or maybe blue. Just spend a few weeks just shooting things with the colour blue in them, and then you'll have a bit of a different element to your work and a kind of series that will be a bit different from what you normally shoot. I have no idea what this is, just come across it, never seen it before. Okay, so the second thing I'd try would be to go somewhere new. As you've probably seen in my last video, I spent most of last week in Norfolk, where I've never been before. And I've never taken photos or video there, so exploring a different place really kind of invigorated my passion for it. It gave me subjects to shoot that I've not seen before, and I think that's really important. I'm really guilty of going to the same place over and over again in the Peak District, not too far from where I live, and that kind of can form a bit of a block at times in going out. If I want to go out and shoot something, I'll automatically think of that place, and then I sort of think, well, no, I've done that loads of times, I don't want to do that, and then automatically I'm thinking a bit more negatively about it. Whereas going somewhere new, I don't think you've got that in mind, and you've got that excitement about shooting a different subject that you've not shot before. So yeah, go somewhere new. So I should probably apologise, the light is all over the place, and this is the perils of trying to create something every week, and the only day you can go out and shoot on is the sunniest day in I don't know how long. So the best thing to do is just stop moving and pick somewhere with some shade. Anyway, number 3, hold on. Yeah, number 3 is to try something a little bit different. And what I mean by that is not necessarily something completely different. So if you're a photographer, I don't mean go out and start shooting video. You can if you like, that might really help. But if you primarily shoot landscapes, why not try taking a step back from that and shooting a completely different subject matter altogether, whether that be macro or street photography. This time of year is great because you can get some quite harsh light and shadows, and having subjects frame well within those works really well. So yeah, just maybe stop trying to do the thing you've been trying to do for however long it's been, and just try and shoot something completely different to what you normally shoot. Number 4 might be the most important thing, and that is to stop comparing what you do to other people. And I am so guilty of this. So as photographers, we spend a lot of time on Instagram looking at other people's images, and what you're doing there is you are looking at, just take one person, you are looking at the best images, the images they've decided are worthy of Instagram, much like you probably put on yours. But the problem is, because you're following hundreds of these people, you are seeing hundreds of people's highlight reels. So all you're subjected to is amazing images all day, every day, forevermore. So what that tends to make me feel crap, basically. I think that when you're comparing what you're doing against all these images from all over the world, it just doesn't do you any favours whatsoever. So stop comparing to other people, and I think that's really important. Instagram is brilliant, it's a really useful tool, but I think what we need to do is perhaps use it in a slightly different way and use it to look for inspiration rather than something buzzing near me. Use it to look for inspiration rather than comparing yourself to other photographers. So maybe look for photographers whose work you really like is slightly different to what you normally do, and that could hopefully tie into one of the other points and inspire you to try something different. My fifth point, and I think this is equally as important and follows on quite nicely from the last one, is that not everything you shoot has to be portfolio worthy. It doesn't have to be the best image you've ever taken, and I think I've fallen into that trap a little bit recently. I've kind of created a mindset where every time I go out taking pictures, I have to come back with something that's really good and really compelling, and realistically that doesn't happen all the time, and by having that mindset you put so much pressure on yourself to create something amazing. So when the weather's not right or the location's not quite right, you're just going to be faced with disappointment, and that's just going to lower your confidence and really affect you next time you want to go out. So I think you just need to kind of get back to the idea of just going out shooting for the sake of it. Fly's just gone straight in my eye. So yeah, you just need to go out and get shooting just for the sake of it, just to learn. We're always learning as photographers and filmmakers, and I think that process of just going out and shooting whatever takes your fancy. No one has to see it. If you do want to share it, people, fine, but we need to get back to shooting for ourselves. And I think me included, a lot of people have fallen away from that. When I was shooting for other people, we're shooting for the likes on social media, and I don't think that's healthy. And we need to get back to shooting for ourselves, because at the end of the day, that's why we took this hobby or profession up. So yeah, start shooting anything and everything, and just remember, it doesn't have to go on your website, it doesn't have to be seen. Just do it for the love of it. So my sixth one is to maybe go out and shoot with a friend. So I've got a few friends that are interested in photography, and I always feel that if I arrange to go out and shoot with them, then I'm more likely to actually follow it up. I'm always going to follow it up. If I've made an arrangement, I'm going to stick to it. Whereas if I've said to myself, oh, I might go out and shoot sunset on Thursday, life gets in the way. You know, things pop up, or the weather might look a bit off, so something puts you off going, so you don't go. If you plan to go with a friend though, you're going to go out and you're going to be shooting, and I think that kind of position that you put yourself in, you kind of making yourself go out. When you're there, you really enjoy it, hopefully you get some good stuff, and that kind of feeds back into the self-confidence. And I think creative block can be a lot to do with self-confidence. If your confidence in what you're doing is low, you're a lot less likely to go out and shoot, and you feel like you don't know what to shoot or where to shoot, and all these feelings can like overwhelm you almost, and I think that's what creative block is kind of built up around. So yeah, I think if you can go out with some friends and shoot something, and that might tie into another point as well, you might be shooting something completely different, but I think it's a really good way of just pushing yourself through it and coming out with something good on the other side. The last point, number 7, maybe contradicts some of the stuff I've already said, but I think it's really important not to force it too much, and maybe sometimes just to let go a bit. So I think to get beyond any uncomfortable situation like creative block, you do need to push yourself sometimes, and everything I've discussed so far relates to almost forcing yourself in some way or pushing yourself a little bit. But I think everyone has a limit, and you've really got to be aware of that. And if forcing yourself to do stuff is making you feel unhappy or uncomfortable or anxious, then you just need to stop and take a step back. And I think that's really important to bear in mind, because at the end of the day, this is something that we do because we love doing it, and if that love's not there and you're making yourself more and more unhappy doing it, then by all means just put the camera away and do something different for a while. And hopefully one day inspiration will strike, and you'll get the camera out again, and you'll fall back in love with doing what you do, and the block will be gone. You'll be back to creating awesome images. Just be conscious of how you feel, and just be kind to yourself. Don't don't put yourself under stupid amounts of pressure to go out and taking photos if it's not what you want to do. Just listen to your own mind, and hopefully one day you'll feel inspired again. You'll go out with your camera and you'll just be back to feeling really great about photography and filmmaking. No beep. So I just wanted to wrap up really with one more thing, and that's talking about just going out and shooting in whatever condition comes across us. So like I've said before, I'm really guilty of looking at the weather, and if it's not going to be an epic sunset, then I'll just stay at home. And I don't think that's the right way of going about things. So I've come out today. I've not actually shot any photos, but it's a bright sunny day, and I've used the time instead to just maybe look at a few things I'll do next time when the weather conditions are different. But I think you should maybe try and pay less attention to the forecast at times and just go out no matter what. And you might not get anything brilliant from it, and obviously I touched on that before, and that's not hugely important, but you might find that you get something very different to what you've shot before because you're shooting in different weather conditions. And I think that can be quite important, and it can also help you when you're at your location to look for maybe compositions that you don't normally consider. So I think following any of the points I've said will really help to try and dig you out of the creative block. It's probably not as easy as it sounds. I still struggle at times, and I definitely need to try and push myself out the door a little bit more than I do. It's quite difficult with the sunrise time being at 4:30 still, but I'm definitely getting better, and I'm using some of the techniques I've discussed to try and aid me. I've got a bin lorry behind me now, that's really improving the shot. What can you do? So yeah, I think be kind to yourself, follow some of the tips, and just go out and enjoy it. Comment, like, subscribe, all that, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.